Gotcha. Yeah. So last week was pretty much a case study, textbook study in like Dukkha. For I mean, I guess like the biggest reason is, so remember I mentioned in the text chat, right? I met a girl online, and so we were just texting back and forth for most of the 2 weeks ago. Um, so basically, the primary thing that I noticed is that um, the mind is, of course, like it's kind of like a dog waiting for a treat, right? You're waiting for the text, you're waiting for the conversation to go on, right? And it's not pleasant. It's not, because the, the joy that the joy that you kind of get, it's kind of like a really small like moment of joy. You see it, you're like, oh yes, here. But then you kind of then immediately you're like, okay, what's the next one? When's the next text? So it's more of a like a kind of nervous, or like, oh, like when is it, like that kind of um I guess joy, if you will. It's not really like it's not anything like a relaxed kind of joy. It got the mind so nervous to the point that when I'm sleeping, it disturbs my sleep, because when's the next reply, when this, when that, right? What do we do next? This, that. And then so basically the whole they're like, I don't think we're like equally interested. Let's just like not. This does not meet. Because it was clear to me that she took far longer to respond, and she wasn't interested in like carrying on like the conversation, or like interested in really meeting up. And so to me that was a lesson that like it's really like it's not really joy. It's like really nervous, kind of like, oh, when is it? When is it? Like when this, when that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but of course, there's also like renewed faith in the practice, right? Because it was very strong reminders to just repeatedly come back. Um, so really, that was the practice, the majority of the practice, 2 weeks. Um, then this week,
Well, let's hang on,
yeah,
okay?
hmm
You've just given uh, or asked a question, or opened a topic
hmm
that that's worthy of lengthy discussion.
sure, okay,
All right, and I'm going to open the topic
hmm
with a conversation between Achan Cha and Achan Sumedo when he was a young monk at a ceremony in Thailand.
hmm
And Achan Cha, because there was a lot of young women there, and probably was, I don't know for sure, but it was probably Katan, which meant that there were young women all dressed up looking for young husbands who were about to disrobe. All right. And
hmm
Achan Cha turned to Achan Sumedo at one point, which is exactly, and I know exactly how this happened because I had it happen so many times to me with with Achan Po. Um, with the basic question was, well, what do you think? Or isn't this nice? And that Achan Sumedo's answer was not only spot on, but it was hilarious. And that was, I like, but I don't want.
Oh.
Now, this is in fact the secret of Paticca Samuppada.
Ah.
That Achan Sumedo, in just 4 or 5 words, gave an entire Dhamma talk on
Mhm.
Paticca Samuppada
Ah.
at that point of contact, when you can see, if you're mindful, at that point of contact, when the sight occurs and the liking occurs,
Mhm.
he's wise enough to say, yes, I do like it. I
Mhm.
experience the pleasure of looking at these young girls, but I don't
Ah,
want one of them.
I see.
All
I
right.
see.
Now, that showed, if you can say it like this,
Mhm.
years of progress. and that it could possibly have been sped up because he was a monk.
Uh-huh.
All right. Now, what we're actually looking at
Mm,
is that in our society,
mm,
we are not taught it that way.
mm,
Um, and there is some separation of sexes in Thailand, but
mm.
there is more separation of sexes in India in general. And then in the Muslim community, there is really a hardcore separation between the sexes, and you can see some of that in Japan, China, and the
Mm.
Chinese culture also. To where
Oh,
in the
now it's
Western,
there.
hmm?
It's like now in China, I think it's like roughly 10 boys to one girl. So the dating, from what I've heard from my friends, is it's pretty bad there. Yes, but anyway, yes. Yeah.
uh, Dating is horrible if that's what you want to do. If you can see the way things actually are, it's not so bad.
Yeah.
Which is exactly the whole encapsulation of the talk that we're having right now.
Yeah.
And that is through wisdom, it's not so bad.
Uh-huh.
The
Because it's like,
dukkha is
mm,
is let us say at least down to the hormonal level and
mm,
is no longer at the mental level.
mm.
But
Because,
part of what go ahead.
yeah, go ahead. Oh, no, no, go ahead. Go, you can go first.
Part of
Yeah.
the what we have in the Western society that we don't have in other cultures is the concept of an arranged marriage or a family marriage.
Mhm.
Even in Thailand, though the people normally sort of find each other on the street,
Mm.
which is the common way of doing it worldwide now, still the relationship is not a relationship until the parents meet and approve of each other,
Oh, wow.
especially the mothers.
See. I see. Wow.
Because in the Thai culture, this is a matriarchal society, and so if two grandmothers are not being able to get along, the marriage
That,
between their kids is not going to last. It's just not. And
yeah.
yet in the West, the mother-in-laws never think of that. They never really consider that they've got a huge obligation to get along with the other mother-in-law. If that marriage is going to get rocky, it's up to us to get some of the rocks off the road.
I see.
And
Yeah.
so that's worldwide, but we don't see that quality in the Western culture the way that we see it in the West. Now, what that means is
Mm-hmm.
in the West, every young man is kind of on his own.
Mm.
He's not going to get much of any kind of cooperation. I mean, what the kid does is up to him. I don't care. It's not my job to find him a wife,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
even though that's been typical of human nature for so many centuries and so many cultures.
Oh.
But in the West, the whole concept of romantic love taking over
Mm.
has lost some very important qualities. So, the
Mm.
young man, then, being on his own and inexperienced, he still is in the position of being a victim.
Ah.
But now he's being a victim, but he's not got the support of his family, and he's young. He doesn't know what he's doing. No one to give him the kind of advice that a
Mm-hmm.
wise grandmother say could give him
Mm.
in other cultures.
I see.
That leads eventually to a neediness
Mm-hmm.
in the sense of instead of my family fulfilling that deep obligation, now I've got to go find a girl who's going to do that for me.
Oh, I see. I see.
That's where the neediness comes from in the young Westerner's mind about getting a relationship going, in the sense that that relationship now defines his manhood, with
Oh.
the whole quality going on about trophy wives and all of that kind of stuff. that you don't find in matriarchal societies. In the patriarchal society,
Mm-hmm.
sexuality
Mm-hmm.
becomes the definition of manhood, power. It's that second instinct, the procreation instinct,
Oh,
gone nuts.
oh, that's what it is.
Yeah, and you can feel those things deep inside. You need that girl. No, you don't.
Yeah,
She just looks nice and you like her, and that's all there is to it.
yeah. See, that's the thing. Uh, after that last 2 weeks, I was like, yeah, this is terrible. And then the like two days, you see somebody that looks kind of like half decent on the street. Boom, there it is again. And I was like, oh, here we go again. Oh no, no. And you can, yeah, I've seen that too. Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh no,
And
you
that
know,
oh no is that's the feeling of I want her, I
no,
need
no.
her,
As in like the mindfulness saying, oh no, no, we're doing this again. No, like
or the recognition that that's
yeah,
where this is going. That
yeah,
right,
and
exactly.
yeah, I was like, oh no, 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 let's no, like, yeah, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, in that regard, the way for young Western men to deal with sexuality is by taking it easy.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
Just take it easy. If
Uh,
something happens, it will.
mm-hmm.
If you want something to happen, then you're more than likely
Mm-hmm.
asking for trouble.
Gotcha. I see. So is
Because
that
we know that wanting things we don't have is the definition
is
of suffering.
yes, exactly. So is that how like this whole thing should be approached? Because I feel like that conversation it highlighted to me that especially during the early parts of what people would call dating, right? A lot of the things are done with future in mind, as in the sense that you ask questions not because like part of the reason for asking questions is you're trying to set up a certain follow up. You're trying to make things happen in the future, right? There's like a whole like in fact a huge portion of it, how it's currently done, is based on first date, second date, do this, that. And you're trying to make something happen, and that's what makes it so I guess like riddled with suffering, right? If you're trying to force
Yes,
it to
not
happen.
only that, but it is almost always the setup is for a victim,
Mm,
a young man who is not sure of himself, is
mm,
awkward, doesn't know the right questions, etc., like that, is pretending and trying to convince this young girl that he is a lion.
I see. Gotcha.
It is much better to become that lion first,
Right.
and
Exactly.
then the women will want you.
Yes. Exactly.
And then you don't have to ask any questions
Exactly. Exactly.
because most of the questions that are being asked is, will you love me? Do you care for me?
Exactly. Exactly. That's a really good point. So if I understand correctly, right? Like remember we said like how should this be approached? Should it even be approached at all? That's what I'm that whatever is. Yeah,
With fun and joy,
I see.
with the attitude of success, with
Mm-hmm.
the attitude of being wealthy, in the
Oh,
sense of do not ever be a cheap Charlie in front of a girl that you want. Be wealthy.
uh-huh.
If she wants to go to a fancy restaurant, you
Mm-hmm.
say gulp and you do, and you'll figure out later what to do with it.
Oh, gotcha, gotcha.
Okay?
Because
The victim is a cheap Charlie. You're a lion. You're wealthy. You're
mm-hmm.
strong. You're invincible.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I think the most important, yeah, so because what I am seeing sometimes, right, is it seems like if we're not careful, it is so easy to blend the line between I like but do not want. It seems easy to like the less mindful you are, the easier it is to kind of shift into wanting and trying to do things like set things up, do that, right? Oh, and losing it, and all the while telling yourself, "Oh no, no, this is okay." When in fact, the mind is waiting, like is plotting, like, oh, what to do next, this, that. Like, is that kind of like, does that kind of make sense?
Yes, it
Yeah.
does.
All right.
And all of that plotting that you're talking about
Mm-hmm.
has, because we're even using the word plotting, it has the quality of deception in it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
the quality of the deception is I'm a pretend lion.
Ah.
I do not, in my own mind, stack up to what I'm trying to get you to think I am.
Oh. I see.
Meanwhile, all of the girls have the quality of they've only seen
Mm-hmm.
um, victims. And so they're out there trying to choose among the victims to figure out which one of them she can change into her lion.
Oh God. It sounds like such a jaded game. This
You
sounds like.
see it, it's on every sitcom. It is on every, I mean, it happens in every church pew. It happens in every high school class. It happens online. And it happens to almost everybody because of the cultural boundaries that we have messed up.
Mm-hmm. I
So
see.
uh, young men in China 400 years ago did not have this kind of problem.
Ah, yes. I think it was just like arranged, and yep, that's it. Good game.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
That's it. Yep. I see. Hmm. So, I guess like one question I still have is, right. So yes, we want to step out from, that victim's position, right? So in the general context of the practice, I understand concretely what that means. It means, for example, you mess up, that's fine. Never mind. Try again. You
Uh-huh.
come back to the practice. That's what it means, right? It's not like, oh, I can't do this. Oh, I'm not creative. I can't do the Dhamma. It's not that.
Wait a minute,
Right.
wait a minute. There's even one more thing,
Mm-hmm.
and that is, do I have the character
Mm-hmm.
and the strength to stand up to my mistakes and admit them openly and take the punishment for it?
Mm-hmm. I see. Uh,
Ah, that's the strength that you didn't mention there. Okay.
oh,
Now, normally, what we want to do is we want to be perfect in our own minds, success in our own minds, which means we do not want to see what we do wrong.
yes. In fact, that's the topic of of this week's thing. But yes. Okay. Yes. Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah.
so we do, so we do not want to see what we've done as wrong, or um, that that I'm okay, even though that happened. It was nothing.
Right.
In fact, the stuff that we see in the news right now about, and the newscasters have put together the sequence of events that Donald Trump goes through on everything that he has
Deny
to
it
deal
first.
with. The first of it is to deny it.
Yeah. And then
The
he'll just say,
second
like,
one is to say, okay, it happened, but it was okay to happen.
yeah.
The
And
next
then
thing that the next thing he says is, well, um, it may have not been okay, but it was a tiny little thing. It doesn't matter.
it was your fault. That's the most important part. It
That's
was
the
your
next one.
fault.
And then
Yeah.
down at the bottom, it was the lawyer's fault.
Yeah. Yeah.
All
He's
right.
a bad
Now,
lawyer.
we do that too with every little thing. Now, these things also fit into exactly what Elizabeth Kubler-Ross wrote in her best-selling book on psychology at the time. The name of the book was On Death and Dying, and she was
Mhm.
talking about the stages of death and the stages of grief that people go through once they've been informed by the doctor that you've got 6 months or 6 weeks or whatever to live.
Oh. Oh
The
wow.
first one is denial, which is
Mm.
exactly what Trump does. The first thing he does is a denial.
Nope. Yep. Not me. I didn't do it. You know, we have amazing staff, great people. Like, oh, like that, just like that.
Uh-huh.
I see. I think yes, I had examined this too, like this kind of like fear, right? I think at least for a large portion of my cases, it's driven by the fear of once people find out that I've done something wrong, that fear of not being liked, like, will they not like me? Oh my God, I cannot, say this. Oh, I cannot admit that. Ah, yes. And I think it's driven by like a fear of that. I think so. I've seen that too. Yeah. Hmm.
Except that
Hmm.
there is the altruism inside of other people that you're not giving credit for. So
Um.
let's look at it from this other position of
Mm.
that I am willing to own what I have done wrong. I stand up and confess and are willing to take responsibility and uh, the what the Buddha calls rehabilitation.
Oh, I see. I
All
see.
right, so that I will be rehabilitated from this and therefore in the process becoming free from it. In fact, that's what a lot of the Patimokkha ceremonies are all about.
Gotcha.
And there is a sutta where the Buddha actually is presiding over the Patimokkha,
Hmm.
where he says, bhikkhus, looking out over the crowd, I, the Buddha, the Tathagata, do not see any offenses here.
Oh.
I do not see any offenses here.
Hmm.
Bhikkhus,
Hmm.
do any of you see any offenses here?
Hmm.
Now, the reason that that's done is because it shows that the Sangha is really a friendly organization. We deal with our own,
Hmm.
that we do not claim any particular monk to be an outstanding or good monk. Let the lay people do that for themselves. And
Hmm.
we do not point out the bad behavior of bad monks.
Mm. I
We
see.
deal with that bad monk on that issue with
Mm.
the intention of getting a confession, getting a reconciliation out
Mhm.
of him, and
Mhm.
get him to recognize that he's done wrong so
Mhm.
that he will then expiate that behavior from his vocabulary.
I see.
A little heavy words there. And so he'll stop.
I see. I think this is a practice I can add on, right? Maybe like for the week, right? Just note like like just write down like 5 moments, right, or something, where you have a choice of taking a responsibility. Just write them down and see if I can push myself to quicker to take responsibility for it quicker, or it's like, to maybe tell the whole truth instead of like a half truth, because sometimes we'll say, yeah, I think it's wrong, or like, oh, I think I put that line of code in, when you're really sure, like, yeah, you were the one who put that line of code in that broke the whole program, things like that. Maybe I can write that down, because I think this is something that I missed, right? Because I've been emphasizing, like, never mind, start again. That's been working really well, by the way. But yeah, that part has
Well, doing the, okay, so remember that step in the practice of no matter how obstructed the mind gets,
mm,
we can clean the mind out
mm-hmm,
long enough to see the truth, long enough to see things as they are right now, the reality of the situation. All right? But
gotcha.
you can now see, to apply that, that when we are in the process of recognizing wrongdoing,
Mm-hmm,
I actually did do gossip. I actually did act like a church lady.
mm-hmm.
I
Right.
actually did push something too far.
Yes.
All
Right.
right. And in that regard, then, okay, it's time to make an apology,
I see.
to bring it out in the public. But you can also do that humorously. It does not have to be, oh, poor me. Oh, I'm such a terrible person because I did that. No,
Uh-huh.
I can just say, no, I did it.
I see. Gotcha.
I
Right.
did it.
Right. So
I played
now
the blame game or whatever.
I see. Okay, let me start like putting some more emphasis on that. I think that's really important. Especially, like, for example, in my case, it was, checked in some code that just broke the whole thing in production, right? And the thing is, your boss, like, is like right there, and they're asking, oh, whose commit broke the thing, and then I was like, oh, like, I was like, oh yeah, I think
I
that
did
was
it.
me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Who else here would have done that?
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay, that's something that's for me to work on. Okay, so now I understand like what it means, to be a lion, like in the general context. So to get like some more, because I feel like for me, right, like because like sometimes to okay, how do I phrase this? So what we talked about here, to behave as a lion in the general context, um, are there any more like concrete like ways I should act when approaching dating? Because I'm asking because like to me it feels like sometimes I get lost between that line between I like and I want, and it's kind of like I it gets easy to slip in if you're not careful to like the I want part, if you're not careful, which is why I'm still a little like confused when we were talking about that idea of like what does it
All
mean to
right.
be a like
Let's look
date?
at two possibilities.
Yeah.
One
Hmm.
is the possibility, both by the way, both of these are old cliches.
Hmm.
One is tall, dark, and handsome.
That's not me. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other one is the statement of the strong, silent type. You've heard both of these expressions, no doubt. All right.
No doubt. No doubt.
All right. What the girl has in her surface fantasy is tall, dark, and handsome, victim or otherwise, I don't care.
Hmm.
But when she sees a strong, silent type, she'll be actually attracted.
Hmm. I see. Hmm.
In other words, the girls who want you are the girls that you somehow very subtly point out to them that you don't want them.
Oh,
And the
how come?
only way that you can do that in reality is by going and being a little bit of an Achan Samedo. I like her, but I don't want her. I mean, after all, who's the lion here?
Oh, okay. I should just keep that in mind then. Then I should just do that. And I assume like the rest of the practice, the stuff will naturally follow. Everything else will naturally follow. Okay,
Uh huh.
gotcha.
Now
Hmm.
remember that the whole idea is that the girl wants you to chase her until she catches you.
Oh, wait. I have to chase until she catches me. Okay.
Now, what that means is she's expecting you to be a victim. The lion doesn't
No.
chase the girl.
Nah, I don't want none of that. Yeah, exactly. Nope. After that thing 2 weeks ago, nope. No. Yeah, gotcha.
That so what that means is that you can take the entire dating mindset, even though that you continue to go to the 5 minute chats or whatever
Hmm.
things that you go to or
Or
what's
just like
online.
just meet people in real life, actually. Yes, of course. Right. Uh-huh. I
And
see.
by the way,
Hmm.
I would say that there's both advantages and disadvantages of online,
I
but
see.
that the real thing is going to happen is on a face to face. So this is
Exactly.
what we're really talking about is when we're there together.
Exactly.
All
Oh,
right. And
yeah.
so the way that you want to deal with that
Hmm.
is by asking her a lot of questions about her
Hmm. I
with the
see.
idea of making her feel good and
Oh.
that you're not interested in getting from her
Hmm.
things that are going to make you feel good because you already feel good.
Right. One thing that um I guess I understood on one level or another during that thing like 2 weeks ago is that yeah, I think it's clear that like coming back repeatedly, that actually was so much better than like oh like waiting for the text or whatever it is, and so I think that really actually gave me a lot more confidence in the practice again once more because I saw that yes, indeed, it's so true that we can be free in like instantaneously when we take the breath. So I guess like that was also like a really strong confidence shot. So I think I'm. Oh, so I think it's clear to me now. Then, It simply
Well,
is.
you see, what you're doing is you're deepening that first step of Sotapan. You're deepening that first step of nobility,
Mm-hmm.
which in this process eradicates the doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Your doubt is becoming very slender now because you've got really strong, solid evidence that the Dhamma works.
Yeah, truly, I think,
Like nothing else I know of.
yeah, it really does. Um, so another example last week was my father was again stuck in some very serious dukkha. So I was working on some programs like here, and he comes back from like his work at like 10 p.m. So he opens the door and he's like, "How are you doing?" And I didn't notice because I was writing the program. So I was just like writing, and I was like, "Yeah, yeah, I'll come out in like a couple of minutes." And apparently that ticked him off really hard, and he got really mad. And so I let him stew for like a day because it didn't work when I talked to him. So I was like, okay, so I'll let him stew for a day. And I remember one thing that was spectacular was I used that kind of nervous infatuation with the girl because there was like there's some kind of joy. That joy isn't really like content joy. It's joy arising from some kind of possessiveness that I finally have something on the line. That kind of nervous joy, but I used it and I just like I'll just crack jokes at dinner and just laugh for like that whole week
The
straight.
joke, the joke is we call it the happiness of pursuit. It's not
Right.
happiness at all, it's
It's
excitement
not.
instead.
It's kind of like a thrill of the hunt kind of joy. Um,
Exactly.
so I used that, and I just like I was smiling, whatever. I used that kind of, I guess like kind of oh yeah, like that thrill throughout that entire week, and it worked really well. And I remember, one thing that I learned is it's really not my father, it's the dukkha. And so when I sat down to talk to him the night after, it I guess like a lot of the things came like down like a lot easier now because I just focused on actually just talking to him and trying to dispel the dukkha instead of saying like you shouldn't see it like this, you should see it my way. I didn't do any of that, and I just focused on getting out that piece of, I guess, like stuck air like inside his mind, like something that's stuck, to dislodge the pattern. And really, I think his demands are really simple. He said it plain and simple, right? He was like, I'm generous with like lots of things. I know it's okay. It's like I like spending money on my wife and my kids. Like he was talking to me, it's great to see them to eat or whatever. It's great, but the only thing that I ask for is maybe just a little bit of like respect or recognition. He was like, remember back then when you were younger, you would give me like the tea or whatnot and say that now I don't expect you guys to do that anymore, and not even that, but that's the only thing that gets me, like a little bit of recognition here and there. And so from
Yes.
that point on, I really understood, yes, I mean, it's a normal human need. This is basically all he wanted. Um, so, on Friday,
Well, you actually did prove to him that your line of code was more important than he was.
right. And so what I said to him was, okay, yes, I messed up this time, but next time, I'm not only going to give you 2 minutes, but I'm going to give you 20 minutes. So I was like, yeah, never mind, start again. So I was like, all right, I was like, I made a mistake, but, next time, I'll give you 20 minutes. And he was like, no, it doesn't have to be 20 minutes, but, just, and I was like, oh, nice. And so I was quite happy to see that, focusing on the dukkha, just to disrupt the dukkha is actually more important, more productive actually, than insisting that, oh, you should see it from my view. I'm doing this and I'm doing that. So it really helped. So on Friday, I had to come back from work to grab something at home. So he was at home. So I just like bought him like a surprise, like favorite lunch. I like showed up to surprise him, and the look on his face was priceless. And it was nice. It was really nice. So that was productive too. Um, yeah, so that was a non sequitur, but like it was pretty. I felt like that was pretty important too.
Yes. Okay.
uh,
Um,
mhm,
First off, I know exactly the frame of mind that it takes to work out algorithmic progressions in code.
yeah.
I have spent years doing that.
Hmm.
And I know the kind of focus that it takes. There's
Hmm.
certain amounts of things in the human mind that can be trained so that we get her done like that.
Hmm.
But And in fact, that's the same kind of concentration that we wind up needing to do if we're going to do jhana.
Ah, I see.
All right, it's exactly the same kind of focus and concentration. Uh, for instance, when you're thinking about a particular piece of code, you're looking deeply into it on a visual level, and you're not talking to yourself about it. You're not repeating x is equal to y plus the factor of z. You're not thinking in verbal terms. You're actually very close to a jhana state.
I see.
All right. Which means that we're not watching what's going on. We're too focused on what we want to do.
Right. There are some
Now
moments.
remember that I was telling you about having a focus that's really open. A lot of it has to do with being able to have visual acuity from the edge of the eyes, so that you can see in a big peripheral way. But it also is kinesthetic. And I know that, in fact, it happened just again yesterday, that I particularly look out because I know not the time that Tam is coming home, but I know that she's coming home before she rounds the corner. I can prove that to myself, that I know she's coming, and there she is.
Gotcha.
There is something that we can just attune to things. That's pretty true with everyone that enters our property, and we have that happen on a regular basis throughout the day. And so that's one of the tasks that I've given myself, is to know who's coming on the property before the dogs do.
I see.
And they're pretty good at their job.
I see. Yeah, that's actually a really good point. I think that example of my father illustrates, right? Too much concentration is not necessarily a good thing, right? Because it's just like, let me just, because you don't really think too much about how you're phrasing. So he's like, no, I'll cut in 2 minutes.
Well,
and
the point in time was when he stuck his head in the door. The question is, at that point in time, can you change your focus? Can you put down that line of code and stand up and say, Dad, I'm so glad to see you.
Gotcha. I see.
I've been thinking about you today.
Oh, gotcha. I see what you mean now. I see.
Right. Can you drop that? Because that's at that point of time when, because of the situation of your dad coming in, that very focus that you were in on that code now is a hindrance.
I see.
And we need to be able to drop that hindrance and come and be here now.
Oh, so that's why we need to be more mindful. I see. To know when to actually drop it.
Well, no, not more mindful, just mindful in an additional new way. But this has been mentioned before, so it's not new that I'm mentioning it now, but rather to get you more focused on that when your dad is around, you need to pay attention to him, because he's not an American dad. He's Chinese. He's traditional Chinese. Please treat him like a traditional Chinese father, and he will teach you the Dhamma that way.
I see. Okay. I think he's definitely like a heightened practice on hard mode, because you really can't slip up with him, because you don't know what even the smallest things will set him off sometimes. It's like 9 out of 10 is not good enough. You gotta do 10 out of 10. Like when you deal with him.
All right. Think of him now as a Zen master.
So I got my own Zen master.
You have your own Zen master.
Gotcha. Okay.
And when he's coming down the hall behind you, you need to sit up straight, saying, Zen master, I know you're there, because otherwise you're going to whack me on the shoulder.
Oh, I see now. Oh, okay. This is fun then. This is fun.
Exactly. Begin to treat this as a fun game, and you can respect your dad and give him the respect that he deserves and demands, at the same time of you getting Dhamma benefit out of it.
Gotcha. I see. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That totally makes sense. Okay. That's really important, I think. Oh, okay. Yeah. So I guess the last like big change that is happening this week is, so I think I'm planning like so this is the 2.5 year mark of my career. It's like really short, honestly, but I'm thinking of pretty much switching work environments. Of course, what I have observed is of course like a mixture of like fear, right? Because you don't know what the next team you're working will be like. Attachment to my current team, because I actually like my current team, but it's just that it's time for the. This is what I hate, but like in computer science, you have to work with technologies that are recent, right? Your work experience needs to be varied to, I guess, pave you to make sure that as much as I hate to say it, to future proof yourself, and so that's I guess like the next big change. So of course there's like occasional like fear of what will happen this, or what will happen that. Um, but the way I'm like I guess like examining it now is the same that we've always done. We come back, never mind, start again. But that's like I guess like the other major change that is happening to me now, I guess. Um, but it's not, I mean, it's not that bad. But it's just like, oh, gotta learn some more new stuff. Never mind, start again, and that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Can I ask you a couple of questions?
Sure.
You're working in the financial district, right?
But as a programmer, yes.
Yes, but
Mm-hmm.
almost everyone who works in the financial district is a programmer
Yeah.
working in.
Oh, yeah.
You're in a big crowd,
I'm
and
not an IB. Yeah, I am not. Yeah.
all right. So in the financial district, though they would talk about doing things with AI, the kind of AI work that they're doing is financial, not operating drones or
Yeah.
helicopters or automobiles. So the point that I'm making is, and let me make one more, and that
Sure.
is that networking,
Mm-hmm.
especially networking security, though the financial district needs networking security at big time, that's not their business.
Mm. Mm.
Okay, and so they're not doing that. That's done someplace else.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm cautioning you that if you change jobs, you
Mm-hmm.
may wind up either having to do stuff with your family that you don't want to do,
Mm-hmm.
or you'll have to be working in the financial district and they're already doing what you're already doing.
Mm-hmm. Oh, as in, so when I said like change work environment, I meant like I'm just like changing teams. So right now, my work is on like some legacy systems, and the technology is, like people will say, "What were you doing for these 2.5 years?" They will, if they see it, and they'll like, "No." And so what I'm doing is I'm switching teams in the financial, I guess, like world to like newer technologies. And so for me, it's just like a change in team. Yeah, not like the actual career. Computer science is what I like, and this is what I will be
Okay,
doing. Yeah, yeah. But like,
you
yeah, it's like
you made it more clear. All
yeah,
right,
yeah, yeah,
excellent.
yeah,
Because you didn't make it clear, my scope was huge.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
I know the entire field of computer science.
yeah.
Where do you want to go?
No, yeah, yeah. I would have lived and die computer science. I mean, this is like this is it, man. This is it. Yeah. Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. So let me ask you this: you're talking about legacy systems. How legacy is it?
So we're
Is it
talking about 20,
COBOL?
10, 20 years. So we're talking about like stored procs in like Oracle, like DB, like things like that. Yeah.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Um, so those stored procs will be available in almost any of the newer languages, including Python or even C++ or Java, any of them.
Exactly. But
And
we're talking
so
about like
but that makes them not so much legacy at all. In fact, I would
mhm,
consider SQL
mhm.
still
Oh,
very
yeah.
modern. It's such. I know how old it is,
Hmm.
but we used to do SQL in COBOL.
Oh my God.
And we didn't. And
Oh
when we
my
stored
God.
a proc, we stored it in our COBOL.
Oh my God. Oh my God. That's like a whole new level.
Right. So yeah, I speak the language of your grandfather, computer scientist.
Yeah. But like, yeah. So but on the bright side, the new team has two of my older team members. Like, but so that we didn't really talk much on my current team. Like while they were on my current team, we really didn't talk much. So, mostly now it's like for me, it's like the intermittent fear of, oh, will I gel with this new team? Oh, what's gonna happen? Oh, like this, that. So it's really just more of the mind like spinning. So I've been just, oh, come back, breathe, come back, and so yeah, it is like it's nice, but it's like a change of, I guess, like scenery for me, because like the frameworks that people want now are like they want the latest ones. And, things like React.js for the front end, newer database technologies, right? Like graph databases, things like instead of like the traditional like ACID like DB like the usual like MySQL or Oracle. So or now that people are thinking about like things like Cassandra or like different ways of data, and so it's important, as much as I hate to say it again, like to future proof, you need some kind of, they need to see that you have experience with this kind of technology. Like the bar is getting higher as you have more experience. And so for me, I was like, yeah, I mean, it's like you said, this is like that human pyramid race to the top. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
if since you're about to address that,
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't,
Mm-hmm.
where's your satisfaction going to come from?
Right, my satisfaction in my work.
Well, yes, because that's what we're talking about now. Where is your satisfaction going to come from? Or is your satisfaction going to come from being able to do a job like nobody else can? Or you're going to derive your satisfaction by being able to get along with everybody in your team? Are you going to gain your satisfaction by joining new teams and eventually taking over? But you have to start off at the bottom?
No, I certainly do not want like power. I don't want like to be a managing director or something. I don't. I honestly have no.
Guess what?
Yeah,
Computer scientists make bad
yeah.
managers.
I hate. I absolutely don't like it, because
We
I feel.
cannot manipulate other people
Yeah,
like we can computers, and we hate that.
it's like that. It's like it's like I even hate like the manipulate. I just don't like it. Um, that's a good point.
But that's what management is all about. And in
Exactly.
fact, management and manipulation are exactly the same word.
I mean, exactly right. Like if they're not doing the actual coding work, right? What are they doing, right? They're manipulating other people into doing the work. Um, that's actually a really good question. Like, where is my satisfaction coming from?
Yeah. So the question is, where will you gain your satisfaction?
Yeah, that's a
Don't
good.
answer that now. Think about it. This is kind of
Yeah,
a contemplative question,
right.
which actually has to define your relationship with that pyramid.
I mean, if you ask me now, it's gonna be here, right? Like, it's pretty good. Like if you ask me now, it's here. you know.
Well, in a way, you'll ask yourself this question every day of your life until you finally find the right answer.
Hmm. Yes, that's a really good question.
Yeah, it is. It's a good question. Where will you find your satisfaction?
I mean, for me, right? I'm beginning to like more of the more of the Dukkha Naroda like moments. I mean, I think those are pretty good compared to like anything else. I mean, honestly, those are some of the best moments I ever had. So,
Okay, in that regard, just going down that pathway, then perhaps the best job that one can have is a job that's easy to do because you're very good at it.
right, exactly. I mean, here's where, I feel like, one thing
Now,
is,
with a computer scientist, that winds up being in many, many respects.
yeah,
All right. For instance, because I became very good with IDMS,
Mm.
which is a language you probably don't know about. It was
Yeah.
actually a predecessor to SQL.
Mm-hmm.
Because with IDMS, we were actually manipulated the data structures directly on the drives,
Mm-hmm.
only the way that IBM's OS could do.
Mm-hmm.
That IBM's OS gave the ability to manage the drives and the disk at a level that Windows and Unix doesn't allow.
Mm-hmm. I see.
Okay, and so we could build for instance, our own hash tables, which is a
That's a fun
common way.
exercise. That's a really
All
fun
right,
exercise. Yeah.
and so we go off into prime numbers and all of that kind of stuff, and how big the hash tables are, indexing, and all of that kind of stuff was actually part of the program. But the thing that I'm mentioning now is that but we still put it on a screen.
Mm-hmm.
Though it was a screen that was not a graphical user's interface, it was a character-based user's interface. But the
Oh,
characters are what needs to be seen on the screen anyway. So those kind of tools could be also used for making websites.
yeah.
So it's the same skills, and I saw that when I got into a contract where what we were doing was we were setting up Oracle, but we were doing all of the panels and all of the database in
Wow.
Microsoft Access and then converting it to Oracle.
I see.
But because I had so much experience at setting up and doing screens, I wound up doing all of the screens for everybody. We had 6 people on the team,
You just team
and
carried.
most of the people were sitting around figuring, "What am I going to do with this, and how do I do that?" And I just and just did it all.
Uh, yeah. I mean,
And
for now,
and that
yeah.
was good because I'm talking about the fact that I was doing something that I was good at, and because I was good at it already. See, no one in that whole team had Microsoft Access experience at that time, not even me.
Uh, so you just like yeah, because like one thing right now, like the modern, like more recent, I would say, computer science is like they keep changing what you need to be good at. I would say, like right, it's gonna be right now it's React, and maybe like 2 years down from now, no, we're looking for, I don't know, like iOS, like Swift. You have to be good at Swift. And then maybe 2 years down the line, nope, now it's gonna be Amazon EC2 or whatever, right? And it,
It's a fad,
yeah,
and part of the fad is driven by the manufacturers of fads.
I see. Yeah.
That we need new languages? No, we don't,
We
because
don't.
every language that we have can do anything we want to do with
Exactly.
function calls,
Exactly.
subroutines. And
Exactly.
they can go off and do the GUIs and they can do all kinds of other things. And the surface language is irrelevant so
Yeah.
long as the two languages know how to communicate with each other.
Right. And so I was like, yeah. I mean, that's why
And so we could still be using C.
exactly.
We
It's
didn't even need to use C pound or C++, but now
yep.
that we've got those,
Yeah.
who needs Java? Because everything that could be done with Java and in Java could be done in C just by having um, a runtime package like C that
Mhm.
they did in Java. That everything that Java is runtime packages
Yeah.
and calls. That's all that language is. And yet look at the popularity. Well, now they're doing the same thing with Python. And I
Exactly.
do not see the need for changing languages. Once we grew up past Fortran and COBOL, we're good to go. We
Right.
don't need these new languages, but the language manufacturers are out there competing with each other. And so one fad will come after another after another.
Oh my God. And so
And
that's
you didn't even know that, huh? You thought that every new language was going to be better than the rest. No, they're all the same. Once you know 20 languages, you recognize they're all the
the same.
same. You want me to give you my list of 20?
Yeah. You're like, that's it.
RPG, COBOL, Fortran, Algol, Snowgall,
Yeah,
Lisp, languages you never heard of.
yeah, Lisp is fun.
Jovial.
Yeah. Maybe small talk. Is small talk up there? Yeah.
No, no, small talk. That's 20 years after I stopped learning languages. Java, C, C++. I've used all of those things. I've even done a little. One of my favorite though right now is called AKH Auto Hotkey.
Auto hockey. Oh yes, yes, the macro programming, right? Yeah.
Yeah, all right. I can do anything in Auto Hotkey. And the
Oh,
programs wind up being microscopically small, and I can manipulate to Microsoft's Windows registries
oh,
and everything. I don't know of anything you can't do with Auto Hotkey, and it's a
that's
tiny
really
little thing,
cool.
but it's got such an arcane syntax.
One of my favorite ones that I'm like toying around with now is have you heard of Haskell? So it's
Oh,
the
sure, yes. The Pascal's an
it's
old dude. That was done originally for schools.
yeah, it's really fun. Like the functional paradigm, it has it's like the types, like like the abstraction is stronger, and so seeing how that fits in with category theory, is very very fun. Seeing how a lot of the things that we usually do can be abstracted to like things things that are just like combinable with like a one operation, like a binary operation, like some of that abstract math, like monoids and semi-groups and things. It's like really fun. So I've been toying around with that too. It's really refreshing to not have to think about pointers, loops, things, and all that stuff for once, just to relax.
That's good. So that's what I'm getting at. Where are you going to derive your satisfaction? If you derive your satisfaction from using certain languages, then that's where you go. And because the important point is, can you be satisfied with working?
um,
Otherwise, you're going to be caught in that pyramid.
yeah, I mean, one part of me doesn't want to work. No, I mean, certainly there is one part of me that says no. Like I don't want to work. But
Then
somebody
find
had
then
a,
find a job that you're really good at then in the financial district, something that you can do that's better than the rest of the guys, and then you're just set for life.
oh, gotcha. I just need to get to the point where I'm actually really good at it, right? That's what I'm doing now, and part of it, I mean, I guess it's inevitable, right?
Well,
Because you're
that's
stuck
the
here.
problem with becoming a lion. You've got to be good at what you're doing.
Exactly. Right? I mean, yeah, that's the thing. I guess that's why you just gotta keep coming and keep doing it. Never mind, start again.
Right, exactly so. You become
Yeah.
good at it because you like it, and you like it because you become good at it. And so those two things work together, just like on the Eightfold Noble Path.
Gotcha. I see. Yeah, I just gotta keep doing this. I mean, I think that's the only way, right? I mean, you can't just go around like talking about, hey, I'm gonna write this program and not actually do it, or like, hey, I'm gonna do the Dhamma, but I'm not actually gonna sit and practice. I mean, that's not.
Uh
Oh,
huh.
the last thing. Speaking of Dhamma practice, the generosity practice. So I've noticed. So these 2 weeks, I've seen like a lot less homeless people on the streets. Maybe because like the weather was kind of cold.
Yes,
Kind
kind
of
of. They're
brutal.
they're
Like
going to be hard to find.
I've only seen one lady, actually I think 3 times. So I gave her $1 2 times, and the last time I saw her on the street, I think she saw me and like I think she felt ashamed and like looked away. I think, and she just like hurried on. So I was like, oh, and she just hurried on. So I don't know what was up with that. Maybe next time I see her, I can see something else. One thing that I
Be
found,
sure to give her a big smile the next time.
gotcha. One thing I found really peculiar is that out of all the homeless people that I've given dollars to, they don't really smell. They don't. Like you would expect that like homeless people like maybe like they like have a like smell or something, but they actually don't. I actually think back to like all the people that I've like like talked to. Oh, they actually don't really like smell or. And then this is just like some interesting. I mean, the stereotypical is like they have something, but they don't. But anyway, the other thing. So I couldn't give out like all the I didn't like give out all the $10 this
Uh-huh.
week, so I gave 5 to Wikipedia because I was like, I use it all the time. I read it, so why not give back to Wikipedia? So I just donate like to Wikipedia, and I'll be doing that again like next week as well. There was one homeless person in particular, so I actually saw him today, and he was holding out just like a cup. And just when I was reaching out to give him like to walk over to give him $1, I saw so like I think like an African American woman like walked past him, I think to give him something, and he just took his cup back and made a face at her. So at that point I was like, oh, do I want to give this guy $1? And I didn't give him $1 because I was like, oh, is he like being like racist against like the African American women? Because like when she walked over and like looked at him, I guess like she was gonna give him something, he just held his cup back and just like made a face at her. So I was like, oh, that's what I mean, that's what I saw like when I was walking on the street. Like how do I like I should I just like just give it to him still? Yeah, because I think she was walking up to give him something too. Yeah, yeah,
That's very, very curious.
yeah.
That's an example of what is well known about the South,
Uh,
um, where uh, the poor white trash, the very poor white people, they still look down on the blacks.
uh,
Even if the black have more money or live in a better neighborhood or whatever, they still look down on them.
because I wasn't sure if the lady was gonna give him like something, but he like I was certain like he just held his cup back and made a face, and so I mean I guess now that I think about it, I think still I should have given him the $1. It's not my thing to go around spinning like, oh, if he is he doing this, that.
Well, you're not out there on the street to change racist behavior. You're out on the street to practice your own generosity.
But I did give like $1 today when I was coming back on the subway.
Uh huh.
That guy really thanked me because he asked for like a penny or like a dime or a quarter. I gave him $1. He was like, "Oh, thank you, like happy holidays." Like, I was like, "Oh, thank you." Yeah, that was nice. Yeah. So I'll be continuing that as well. I mean, now it's just a matter of being a little stronger with the mindfulness and not judging, remembering to not judge. Oh, are they worthy? Are they not?
Uh huh.
Just giving it. I mean, that's
Remember, when you do that, you're also robbing yourself of the joy of giving.
yes, yes. I notice like when my mind says no, you can feel. I mean, I can feel like some tension and from like turning away. It's like let's just like walk away, hurry up, like, that type of thing.
Your
Practice
practice is getting very good. I'm really pleased. This is really excellent that you're practicing generosity.
that. Yeah,
That's
so
great. You're
we're getting
really learning about your own mind. That's good.
yeah, we're getting there. Yeah, so that was a lot to cover. I think we covered like a lot. So let me, since it's like 2:10 here, so let me like recap just to make sure that I am not forgetting what we talked about. So the first thing is, the two things about being a lion, right? Never mind, start again, and also that strength to admit, yep, I did it. Yeah, I made a mistake. Oops, you know, um, that thing, and then keeping in mind, I like, but I do not want when it comes to things that are related to dating, right? Um, and then the continuous study of Dukkha, right? My father is literally a Zen master. Uh, um, and then lastly, to continue the generosity practice, and then also to think about, yes, like what is it that I like find satisfying, right?
Yeah, what's going to be satisfying? If you're going to be on that pyramid, what's going to be satisfying on
But the
that
thing is, I
pyramid
don't
for you?
want to really be on that pyramid, right? Like, I no, I really don't want to. Like, honestly, I don't. Like, you know, if you think about it, right? My skin, I live in the city. That's the dirty air is causing my problem with my skin. When I was in college, I was at Cornell, and I moved into the air. The thing like just cleared. It cleared. I ate trash and like not like actual trash, like trash food. It cleared, and so like this whole thing is like I'm living here. That's why I have these problems, right? So I don't really want to be on the pyramid. That's really the thing. I can say for like the resounding answer is no. I don't want to be on the pyramid. Uh, well, I mean, I kind of stuck here because somebody's got to pay the bills for my parents. Uh, I, I actually want kids.
All right. Well, one last point on that, and that is that with the internet,
Hmm.
I think that a lot of freelancers can get a lot of business
Oh,
without having to be on site.
yeah. I thought about
And
that
so
too.
that may be the kind of job that you want, is
Hmm.
something that you can do, uh, start off while you're in New York, but then later. And the financial group, they're not going to let you do that.
Oh, certainly
But
not.
there are other parts of the computer science industry that will. They're much more interested in results than control.
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty happy as a student, but I do know that. I mean, I liked like the research kind of stuff, but I do know that like even researchers, they're under huge pressure because they need to write papers. They need to get funding. So it's not as rosy as I think it is as well. I know that like the academic world is not as rosy as it appears to be. It's only because I was an undergraduate, which is why it seems so nice.
Unless you like to write those papers.
Uh, nope, nope, nope. It's
You,
like.
in that regard, you need to talk to Pablo because he's a computer scientist professor in France, and he actually likes writing those papers. He's really interested and curious about language development and all of that kind of stuff. The very conversation that you and I just had about languages, he and I have had it too.
Yeah. So I mean, at some points, I really think I question this. I was like, yeah, is this like a lack of ambition? I mean, like when you're young, they tell you, oh yes, you can do all sorts of great things, but part of it is, honestly, it's like a desire to be lazy, right? I mean, I understand, you still have to eat, you still have to, you like we talked about this before. You need adequate housing, food, clothing, and medicine, but beyond that, um, not really like that like interested, honestly. But it's easy for me to say this now because I have all these things. Like I really question my own resolve when it turns out that hey, no glasses. Yeah, what about that, huh? No glasses. Things like that. But I'll think of it. I have to sit on this. Like really, like
Yeah, needs
yeah.
to be thought about. This is a question that where are we going to get our satisfaction in life,
That's a good point.
especially with in relationship to the work.
Especially, I mean, at least like the generosity practice has shown me so far. Yeah, but the generosity is actually a really nice source of joy. To see people's faces light up, and actually thank you. That's actually like it's really nice, actually. Yeah.
Yes, I know.
And I guess like giving the Dhamma is also kind of nice too. Like if it actually helps, like
It's
other.
the greatest gift.
Mm,
That's one of the things that Achan Po has really made sure that I learned was that generosity is the best way to live, and the Dhamma is the best gift to give.
mm. I hope one day I become skilled enough to do something like this. Yeah, because I do know that can change lives. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
All right, Willie.
Thanks so much. Yeah, I think like I just like completely we just like went on like a whirlwind tour of the past 2 weeks. Yeah.
Excellent.
Thank
I
you.
enjoy our talks.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, bye bye. Have a good
Okay,
night.
bye bye.
Bye.